Hi, everyone, and welcome to the program. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C., and over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the U.S. and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, here's a look at the latest headlines. The British Health Minister says he will not challenge Prime Minister Keir Starmer for the top job, putting to rest media reports that some of the leader's allies fear a possible coup later this month. Australia and Indonesia agreed to a new security treaty that includes closer military cooperation as Canberra strengthens its defense ties to counter China's growing influence in the Asia-Pacific. Thailand demands an apology from Cambodia after accusing it of planting landmines that injured Thai soldiers days after suspending a fragile ceasefire. Ukraine suspends its justice minister amid a $100 million corruption probe into the country's energy sector as investigators uncover an alleged kickback and money laundering scheme. And the International Energy Agency says renewable energy continues to grow faster than fossil fuels, with global oil demand possibly peaking around 2030. We begin with the Caribbean, which is now fast becoming a flashpoint of geopolitical tensions. The United States has now deployed the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. to Latin American waters in what is now the most significant U.S. naval presence in the region since the 1989 invasion of Panama. The Pentagon confirmed that the Gerald IV carrier strike group, comprising guided missile destroyers, aircraft, and over 4,000 sailors, adds to the already growing U.S. military presence in the region.
The enhanced U.S. force presence in the U.S. Southcom, AOR, will bolster U.S. capacity to detect, monitor, and disrupt illicit actors and activities that compromise the safety and prosperity of the United States homeland and our security in the Western Hemisphere.
The deployment marks a major escalation in Washington's defense posture against Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro, whose government has vowed to resist what it calls imperialist aggression. In fact, on Tuesday, Venezuela began extensive military exercises with the aim of safeguarding its airspace against possible foreign aggression.
We are lovers of peace. We deeply love peace. We do not want war either here or anywhere in the world. But if they come to touch Venezuela, well, they will find us here.
Since September, U.S. forces have carried out at least 19 strikes on alleged drug boats, killing around 76 people. Now, U.S. officials say the operations target traffickers working for transnational criminal organizations, but critics, including members of Congress, have denounced the strikes as extrajudicial killings that risk violating international law.
Let the gringos do whatever they want. We are unperturbed, and no one is going to stop us from producing, working towards, building direct and true democracy, and the blessed and sacred perpetual peace of Venezuela.
President Trump has defended the campaign, claiming it saved thousands of American lives. Yet when pressed about possible land strikes inside Venezuela, he refused to rule them out, adding, quote, "I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do with Venezuela," end quote. Take a listen.
Exactly, but we are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control. We've had a couple of days where there isn't a boat to be found.
Now across the region, the reaction has in fact been mixed. At the recent CELAC summit in Colombia, 58 of 60 nations signed a declaration rejecting the use or threat of force, though none directly mentioned the U.S. Meanwhile, in a rare and surprising break, the United Kingdom has suspended intelligence sharing with the United States on suspected drug vessels in the Caribbean. The move reportedly stems from British concerns that shared intelligence could be used to conduct lethal strikes in violation of international law. Now, London has declined to comment, but officials privately described the decision as a necessary legal safeguard. Now, amid the escalating tensions, the Venezuelan leader has signed a sweeping new defense law empowering militias and police units to take part in national resistance and guerrilla-style defense operations should an invasion occur. Reports suggest that the government is training small units across 280 sites to prepare for what it calls prolonged resistance.
As of this moment, by signing this law, all integral defense commands that bring together all public institutions of the Venezuelan state, the military institution, and all popular power must be activated at dawn today. So by signing, the order must be activated for the integral defense commands to be established, structured, and put to work to be prepared.
For now, a tense calm holds in the Caribbean, but with U.S. carriers on patrol, Venezuelan missiles on standby, and allies pulling back in alarm, the mood is shifting quickly as Washington and Caracas move closer and closer to confrontation. The tone and tenor on immigration in the United States appears to be shifting, and this time, the change is coming directly from within the White House. After years of promising to tighten America's borders and curb the inflow of foreign workers, the president now seems to be softening his stance, acknowledging that the country needs skilled talent from abroad to fill crucial jobs. In a Fox News interview aired on Tuesday night, President Trump said the United States doesn't have talented workers in certain fields as he defended the H-1B skilled worker visa program. Now, the H-1B visa allows U.S. companies to hire highly skilled foreign professionals, often in technology and engineering, for periods of up to 6 years. And when pressed on whether his administration would reduce these visas over concerns of lowering wages for Americans, President Trump conceded that while he agreed that protecting local jobs is important, there are some areas where, as he put it, you do have to bring in talent. When pressed on claims that the U.S. already had plenty of skilled workers, the U.S. president responded saying, quote, "No, you don't," end quote.
You don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment line and say, "I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles."
The president even pointed to a recent immigration raid at a Hyundai facility in Georgia where hundreds of South Korean contractors were deported as evidence of America's dependence on foreign expertise. He also defended his plan to allow more international students, particularly from China, to study in the United States. Now, despite strong pushback from within his own MAGA base, President Trump argued that international enrollment is vital for the survival of American universities. And when confronted with charges that Chinese students spy and steal intellectual property, the president stood his ground, saying that without high-paying international students, half the colleges in the United States could go out of business.
We do have a lot of people coming in from China and other countries. We also have a massive system of colleges and universities. And if we were to cut that in half, which perhaps makes some people happy, half the colleges in the United States would go out of business.
Now, the plan, which could bring over 600,000 Chinese students to the U.S., has sharply divided opinion. MAGA activists have warned that it could open doors for Chinese spies, but at the same time, the Trump administration continues to impose stricter controls elsewhere. For example, in September, President Trump signed an executive order to introduce a $100,000 application fee for H-1B visas. Over 70% of those visas currently go to Indian workers, many of them in the tech industry. And the White House maintains that its ultimate goal remains to put American workers first. But now that message seems to be evolving. And whether this marks a real shift in policy or just a tactical adjustment to growing economic pressure, what's certain is this will cause massive turmoil within the Trump base. And now to the Balkans, where anger is rising on the streets of Serbia. Thousands of protesters encircled a former army headquarters in Belgrade on Tuesday, opposing a new law that fast-tracks its transformation into a luxury compound leased to a company linked to President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Now, the demonstration added to a series of anti-government protests that have gripped the country for months, fueled by anger over corruption and a deadly infrastructure collapse last year. Now, the protest, described by local media as one of the largest in recent weeks, also saw participants form a human chain around the bombed-out remains of the Yugoslav army headquarters, a landmark partially destroyed in NATO's 1999 air campaign. The demonstrators accused the Serbian government of erasing a key piece of the nation's history in favor of foreign investors.
We are very disappointed with this situation, with the special law which is unconstitutional in itself. The law cannot be applied to cultural heritage, but only to speed up opinions and solutions regarding cultural heritage.
There is no end to humiliation. This is something that undermines national identity and disrupts the continuation of our culture and traditions.
Now, last Friday, Serbia's parliament approved legislation allowing Kushner's Miami-based Affinity Global Development to expedite construction permits for a massive $500 million redevelopment project. The plan includes a high-rise hotel, luxury apartment, shops, and offices on the site of the former military compound. In fact, the building, which was long seen as a monument to those killed during the NATO bombing, was also stripped of its protected cultural heritage status back in November of 2023. And that stunning decision is now under investigation by Serbia's organized crime prosecutors, who are probing whether the revocation documents were in fact forged.
I am astounded that a robbery that must involve corruption is being enacted publicly and without mercy, even though we have been resisting it from the beginning to this very protest. We are helpless. It's a simple fact. You cannot gift real estate in the center of the city to anyone.
Still, the government continues to defend the project, arguing it will attract international investors and strengthen relations with Washington. Now, the Serbian president described the deal as, quote unquote, a long-term lease, not a sale, promising that Kushner's investment, estimated at more than $750 million, would raise Belgrade's global profile and immediately boost its real estate value. But the opposition labeled the decision unconstitutional, describing it as a crime and adding that the landmark would be replaced with casinos and jacuzzis. Now, Affinity Global Development, which is part of Kushner's wider Affinity Partners investment group, has not commented publicly on the resistance. But as demolition crews prepare to move in, so too are demonstrators pushing back with both fire and fury. The world's biggest climate summit exploded into chaos on Tuesday when indigenous protesters stormed COP30 in Brazil's Belém, ripping down doors and clashing with guards. As drums thundered and chants of resistance filled the air, the Amazon's defenders say their forests are not for sale. But as they were being dragged out, one seat inside was conspicuously empty, that of President Donald Trump. The U.S. president, never a believer in climate change to begin with, pulled out of the Paris Agreement, calling climate change the greatest con job ever. And now, with anger on the streets and denials in the halls, COP30 has become the stage for a fierce new battle for the planet itself. Our next report has more.
It began with the sound of drums, a beat that echoed through the humid air of Belém, deep, urgent, unrelenting. Then came a chance, resistance. And before anyone could react, the gates of the COP30 climate summit were no longer gates at all. They were broken. Indigenous protesters, with their faces painted, feathers glinting under floodlights, surged forward. They pushed past barriers, ripped a door clean off its hinges, and stormed into the world's biggest climate conference. The place meant for quiet negotiation suddenly became a battleground of belief and fury. A clash between those who speak for the earth and those deciding its fate. For a moment, the symbol of global unity trembled under the weight of rage. And the question that filled the air wasn't about carbon targets or net zero timelines. It was who really gets to fight for the planet. Soon after, security guards sprinted toward the entrance. Protesters shoved, yelled, and waved banners reading, "Our forests are not for sale." Drums thundered, doors slammed, metal detectors toppled. One security guard was carried away in a wheelchair, clutching his stomach. Another was bleeding from the head, struck by a drum. UN officers used tables to barricade doors as the protesters fought to stay inside. Plastic bins flew through the air, and shouts turned to screams. Through the turmoil, one thing was clear: this wasn't random anger. It was years of neglect boiling over. Indigenous communities say billions are being spent to build a gleaming new city for COP30, while their schools crumble, their clinics fade, and their forests burn.
They are the government. It's a way of defending the space where it's being held at this moment. But for us, it's a moment of revolt, of indignation. It's a moment when we indigenous people feel the defeat of our territory in our skins.
That anger now filled the hall where world leaders talk about saving the earth. When the dust settled, the protesters were forced out. Fire brigade officers formed a human wall at the entrance. 2 guards were hurt. The venue was slightly damaged. The UN called it a protective action, saying the site is now fully secure. Nearly 200 countries are in Buildup this week, wrestling over how to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, a promise made 10 years ago in Paris and still far from reality. Yet even here, at the heart of the Amazon, hypocrisy hangs heavy. Brazil continues to approve new oil and gas licenses, while the forest, the protesters' home, keeps shrinking. The recent standoff has left a scar and a question. Because while tension spills onto the streets, inside those guarded halls, another kind of silence hangs heavy. Not every leader is there, and one absence speaks louder than most: the United States. President Donald Trump has chosen to sit this one out. He has called climate change the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world. So, as delegates debate how to stop global warming, one of the world's biggest emitters is no longer part of the conversation. For a few tense minutes, the future of the planet was being fought over, not in meeting rooms, but at the doors of the venue itself. The Amazon has always been called the lungs of the earth, but for now, those lungs are screaming. The Amazon's defenders may have been pushed back, but their voices still echo beyond barricades. And when the last speech fades and the delegates go home, that sound will remain. A reminder that resistance does not end at the door of the summit. It begins there.
And today we end in Japan. It's the kind of headline that makes your skin crawl, and I mean that literally. Thousands of venomous spiders have been discovered and wiped out at a U.S. military base in western Japan, turning what's usually a high security zone into a scene straight out of a scary movie. I'm talking about redbacks, black widows, and brown widows. A creepy crawler infestation. Experts say the 8-legged intruders likely hitchhiked on military aircraft, turning Japan's defense hub into an unplanned nature reserve for some of the world's most dangerous spiders. Here's our final report with more.
In a scene that sounds straight out of a horror film, thousands of venomous spiders were discovered and exterminated at a U.S. military base in western Japan. The 8-legged invaders had quietly multiplied within the U.S. Marine Corps air station in Iwakuni, turning one of Japan's busiest defense hubs into an unexpected battleground against invasive species. Between July and October, authorities captured nearly 3,500 spiders. This list includes 762 redbacks, 547 black widows, and 137 grey widows. Of these, 1,446 were females, capable of laying hundreds of eggs each. Experts believe the spiders likely arrived on military or defense aircraft, hitching rides from regions as far as America, Southeast Asia, or the Pacific. An Iwakuni city environmental official stated that they asked the base to completely eradicate spiders and maintain grass near the boundary fence to stop them from spreading. However, this isn't Japan's first run-in with venomous invaders. Just this September, sightings of redback spiders sparked a safety alert at the upcoming Osaka Kansai Expo 2025. Nearly 70 redbacks classified as an invasive alien species were discovered in restricted backstage zones since the expo's opening in April. Earlier in 2024, another infestation made headlines when officials in Yamaguchi Prefecture and Iwakuni City exterminated 460 venomous spiders. A mix of black widows, redbacks, and brown widows invaded between April and July at a US military base. The redback spider, native to Australia, first appeared in Japan in 1995 after stowing away on a cargo ship in Osaka. Since then, the species has spread to all 47 prefectures, thriving in dark, warm spaces from vending machines to rooftops. Female redbacks, though only 1 centimeter long, carry a potent neurotoxin capable of causing paralysis or death in vulnerable individuals. The black widow, native to North America, spotted in Iwakuni between 1999 to 2000, is less aggressive, though its bite can still trigger painful symptoms like nausea and muscle cramps. The brown widow, first detected in Japan in 1995, adds to the list of invasive threats now adapting to the country's urban environments. Experts warn that Japan's growing list of alien invaders, from raccoons to bullfrogs to American crayfish and fire ants, is becoming harder to control. Experts say the redbacks are now beyond eradication. However, black widows and grey widows might still be contained if action is swift. Meanwhile, Japan is also fighting another battle, fire ants. The insects were recently discovered in Niigata port, marking their first appearance in the prefecture. In a novel countermeasure, customs officials are training beagles to sniff out fire ant colonies arriving in shipping containers, with the new canine unit set to deploy early next year. For now, Japan's escalating invasion of creepy crawlies underscores a bigger concern. As trade and travel increase, so does the risk of foreign species quietly moving in and refusing to leave.
That's going to do it for us today. We certainly thank all of you for tuning in, not just today, but every day. We thank you so much, and we hope to see you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks, everyone, for watching.